Okay, friends, welcome to another edition of the Incredible Hulk podcast. And this time we're talking about the season 5 episode called Veteran. It was episode 3, written by Nicholas Correa, who had done a lot of Incredible Hulk work, sometimes as a director as well. He is very, very well respected within the Hulk community as a regular guy involved. It was also directed by Michael Vijar, I think that's how I pronounce it, who I haven't heard of before, but maybe he did a few Hulks, I'm not sure, I'll have to look into that. Anyway, this story is called Veteran, and it kind of says it kind of means what it says in the title, as it seems to be centered around the Vietnam vet guy, called Doug Hewitt, who's played by Paul Koslo, who's been in lots and lots of stuff in television and films. Oh, yeah. As soon as you see him, you say, I recognize that face. He's one of those kind of guys. So the opening part pretty much is this guy, played by Paul Koslo, being mugged. And David's just, conveniently happening to be walking by, and kind of thwarts their attempts at mugging by shouting out, and they run off. Luckily, they don't get anything too valuable from this guy. But the character Doug kind of feels indebted to David, and takes him in to his place. His house, yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of gives him, some food and shelter for the night, and, as a mark of gratitude. Then David starts learning a little bit more about him as time goes on. So how do you feel about this one? I've got Sue, by the way, Sue's with me joining me on this one. I'm very thankful to you, Sue. So what did you think of this story from the outset, and the sort of the storyline to it?
Well, it was kind of the Vietnam vet was really, really inspiring and courageous, and he went through his stuff. He was inspiring. He was going through PTSD. He had a lot of flashbacks during the episode, and he went through that, but there was there was some secrets about him. I mean, he wasn't he wasn't everything that he meant to be, and stuff like that. So had a dramatic encounter with the Hulk, and so
it's interesting because David was kind of torn between, he had that kind of dilemma thing again, didn't he? He had to try and stop this, because then he realized that this guy Hewitt was planning on taking out this politician guy.
Yeah.
He was very, very fixed on doing that. And because he wasn't in a very good emotional state, of course, this added even more drama and trouble to it all. And David found himself kind of like torn between, a place he didn't want to be by having to contact the authorities, and he didn't want to get involved with that, in case he got found out as to who he was. But at the same time, you had to stop this guy from killing this.
Yeah, and there was always McGee, in the background, right?
McGee wasn't in this one.
Oh,
he's always credited at the beginning in the titles, but he wasn't in this particular one. There were a few where he didn't pop up, but he was always in the opening titles because he was pretty much a regular character, so they always kept him in at the beginning. But it was just interesting that how David had to kind of immerse himself in all these problems as usual, and how he tries his best, but doesn't want to be stepping into the limelight too much, obviously because of his own problem,
Right. And when the politician was threatened, the Hulk came out.
Yeah, and the way they did that was much like the sort of torture techniques, wasn't it? They had David in this room, and this guy who seemed to be getting a lot of pleasure from hurting him. He was a bit of a sadist, putting those things onto his head, his temples, and cranking up this, I don't know what it was. What do you call that? Like a bit like the techniques they used to have in mental hospitals, wasn't it?
Yeah, electroconvulsive therapy.
Yeah. So shock waves are going through his brain, This guy, really had no problem about doing that. He was quite a nasty piece of work, that guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, it brought the Hulk out in David, and he sorts them out. And
so it was the politician became like, even though the politician was really crooked, he became like the victim in this, and the veteran became the there was just more to him than meets the eye. He was gonna do something dramatic.
Yeah.
And David being sheltered by him, really, that became, it became an important moment for him to relinquish, sort of his space, anyway, and to sort of talk it out with him.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that
dialogue and sorry, go ahead.
And when he gets to the place where they're having this kind of like a politician kind of what do you call it, a gathering thing, like what do you call it there?
Rally,
yeah, kind of thing, isn't it? Where they were all there, so the crowd are there, they're on the stage
and stuff
and all that stuff, and he's over in the building opposite with the gun,
yeah.
But and then of course he sabotages this space. This happens to be a dance studio. This girl's working in, so he's kind of holding her hostage as well.
Yeah,
she doesn't know what he's going to do, what he's capable of, because he's not really in sound mind. And she thinks, "Am I going to get out of here alive?"
Yeah.
What's this guy capable of? So you got her there being, obviously very scared and stuff.
Yeah.
As well. So, you've got that extra drama part to it, dramatic part to it. But so I like that. I like that as well. That kind of tension was good. She tried to sort of talk to him, get to learn more about him, maybe soften it a bit. They used to call that sympathizing with your captor. There's a word for that.
Stockholm syndrome.
That's it. Yeah, a bit like that. Yeah.
But
yeah.
He fought through that PTSD to get soft with David. He wasn't always like, scary. Anyway, I thought that turn was good. I thought that was a good plot twist, like where, he was sensitive because he'd just been mugged and stuff, and then he became like super aggressive and super.
Yeah. But ultimately, I don't think he was a bad guy, really.
No. Really,
ultimately. I just think he was very affected by what happened and stuff, and so fixated on this guy, perhaps going the wrong way about things, really. Yeah. He could have just, said, "Can we have a chat instead?" Maybe that would have solved a lot of things, rather than just going out and wanting to assassinate him, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I suppose when you're in that kind of way, who knows what you're capable of, and and he was obviously driven to wanting to commit murder. David, of course, tries to. It's quite an interesting one because David tries to spots him from. He got there at the rally and he spots Kozlo in the window, and realizes, oh my God, that's him, and runs to try. It's like a case of getting the wrong end of the stick with with the people that were protecting that politician.
Yeah, right.
He's actually running to try and save his life.
Right.
Get him out of the gunfire, but they think he's the one that's attacking the politician, trying to kill him.
Right.
So it's this kind of like moment where he's trying to do a good thing, and then of course they start beating him up, kicking him underneath that table, and then of course all hell breaks loose again. Yeah. Big green man comes out, and eventually he kind of inadvertently saves the day, as usual. Yeah. And the guy, eventually the police bust in, always when it's kind of too late, don't they? They're always just like there. They suddenly bust through the door with their guns, go, hold it right there, when all this stuff's already happened, Yeah. But it's always the way for drama. They always have to do that. And they always come in at the end, and when everything's nearly over,
Yeah.
You can't rely on them. But it was good, and some nice performances. I thought Paul Koslo was good as that's kind of like crazy guy a bit, and frantic, and he conveyed that very well, And the dream sequences were good too. Very surrealist stuff, wasn't it? Nightmare.
Yeah. The politician was played by Bruce Gray, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was cool. It was great. It was really cool. So I like the sensitivity over being a Vietnam vet. I mean, back in the 80s, it wasn't unheard of for people to still be like, whatever, you guys should have not ever gone to war. I mean, it was only 10 years after the war ended, really, for people in 75. So I mean, it wasn't that different. It was a different time.
Yeah.
But the producers and writers dealt with it with a lot of respect, and showed what's really happening to soldiers, and then made it really dramatic. And
I mean, they did it. They focused on that a lot more and much more vividly in the film called Jacob's Ladder as well.
Oh, seriously, that one was
and showing the effect that had on vets.
Oh my gosh!
And the recurring nightmares they had, and that was really strong stuff.
Yeah,
this was kind of like a sort of more softer precursor to that, with the nightmares.
Yeah. Just a lot of discussion, and then he goes bonkers.
Yeah.
I mean, the veteran goes bonkers.
Yeah.
So,
but Jacob's Ladder was brilliant, by the way. But it was a real did screw your head up. That's for sure.
It's
you're starting to think, what is the reality and what isn't? It was so strange, but it kind of shows really what they went through. A lot of them, and the ongoing nightmare and trauma they had.
Yep.
A lot of them didn't recover from. Because it was so extreme out there. Can you imagine? I mean, I can't. It must have been horrific.
I fight a little bit in my day-to-day life to be good and stuff, but I can't imagine fighting a war. I mean, I think about like how, and I can't, but I also like, I guess I can't, really think of myself in terms of superhero sort of fighting crime either. So, I mean, the war is, I guess that's kind of like the parallel there, is that this guy was there to fight a war, and then this other guy, David Banner, is like fighting his own war in himself and with the. Oh my gosh, that's so good.
That's true.
With the criminal elements around
He's fighting his own is in a war with himself. Yeah. Well, as having to come up against week after week all these other people's problems that he has to deal with as well.
Sure.
And it's a nice romantic ideal, isn't it, to think that every time you come across, you'd help someone in that way and get yourself involved and nearly get yourself killed every week.
Yeah.
But in reality, how many of us would do that?
It's not for me, man.
But that's dramatic. That's dramatic art. That's the difference. If it didn't have those dilemmas, there wouldn't be a series.
I blame Stan Lee then.
Yeah, he has to have these problems, otherwise there'll be no narrative. He has to have someone else's problem.
That's right.
But it's ingenious how they wrote these stories in that really dealt with very human issues, which I always loved about it. That's one of the things that really, really still strikes me about the series,
Yeah.
They weren't afraid to tackle so many issues like that. you know.
Yeah. The veteran went to was not all he was at the beginning. You know, he went to a darker place. He had a different, you know, soul than that one. But it was incredible. It was incredibly interesting, and it was a good episode. I enjoyed it, and yeah.
But I think ultimately they did a good job all around. You know, I don't think there was anything
it was really popular.
Yeah.
I mean, in my friend circles, a lot of people watched Hulk. A lot of people watched The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
But it was ever timely. I mean, that's really the thing with like the way it was written in the 80s was that it was really timely.
Yeah.
Dealt with all sorts of the issues of the day, and veterans affairs and veterans. I mean, it may have been one of the first to ever, like, you know, treat it with a little more respect than just you sinful soldier. Why'd you go to war?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, that's just my opinion, I guess, on that. But I do know that on a second watching, it was I mean, a watch again, a rewatch. It was great effects. You know, once again, David walks off in the end all by himself.
Yeah.
It's just like, I don't know.
That's the thing. That's the lingering. That's that shot that always lingers in your memory, isn't it?
Yeah.
Him walking off and thinking, he's gone off to another adventure again. You know. Yeah. Gonna do save more people, right more wrongs, but he still ultimately is alone at the end. You know.
Yep.
That's very sad, but it's just the way. But it works. It just works. You know. It's kind of like that's how it has to be. But I liked this one actually. I did. I thought there was some good performances. As I say, Paul Koslo was really good. Bill Bixby, as usual, was always solid. You know. No matter what he's presented with, he always seems to do such a great job of it. You know, he goes further, that extra mile, really, doesn't he? You know, and the girl in it was good too. Her name escapes you at the moment, Susan. I don't know if you can remember the actor's name.
I'll find it.
The actress's name, I've forgotten it now. But
Wendy Gerard.
Wendy Gerard, right? Yeah.
Played Lisa.
That's it. Yeah. It's all around a good one, and a good Hulk out. I thought there with the with the electro things. I thought that was a really good one. When he's screaming and not very. It wasn't a pleasant way to go, but
yeah,
it was quite violent, that one. But it was. I just the way Bill conveys pain and anger is just so spot on, really, isn't it? You know, you really feel for him. You know, when that happens. And of course, you know what's going to happen as well. The eyes are going to come out, and that's it. There's no way back then, you know.
And Lou Ferrigno is once again, you know, he carries a lot of different emotions. He's not just, you know, one-dimensional in this.
Yes, that's right.
Mean, I guess you'd have to be for a TV show to have it more, you know, more dramatic that way. But anyway.
Yeah. This is the one where they do a little spoof, don't they, of High Noon?
Oh yeah,
with the Hulk and the boy. You know, do you remember that?
Ching, ching, ching. Yeah.
And he's standing there, like, you know, the low shot of the legs, like he's going to pull a gun, and this little boy shoots a pop gun at him or something, and then he's like, he does the blow on the gun, you know, the blow they do, and the Hulk blows, and it blows his hair and scares the kid off. I thought that was really great. It was like a wind, the gust when he blew, you know. And the kid goes running off to mum or something, you know. I thought that was but I used to love those little moments like that with Lou, you know, where they used to just like slot this little light-hearted bit in at the end, you know, when he's coming down from his anger, and, like, you know, he comes across someone, or he comes across an animal who's trapped or something and
Right.
cradles him or something in his arms for a while. You know, these little tender little or comedic moments are always good, you know. But to see a bit more, and it was good for Lou to get that extra bit of like, you know, emotion and some acting in there, you know.
Yeah.
As well. Rather than just, you know, hulking out, doing his bit, running off, that's it, you know. And then cuts back to Banner. Sometimes you would get these extra little Easter eggs, you know.
Yeah.
And I loved it when they did that, you know. So all in all, Sue, your ultimate, your overall kind of feelings about this episode.
It was good. It had a dramatic, you know, turn of events, a turn of personality of the one that you thought was the protagonist and the victim turns out to be the aggressor. That sort of thing. There was the cool parallel between, you know, the Hulk's war and everybody else's war. You know, the war in Vietnam, and the Paul did a good job. Paul Kozlo did a good job as Doug, and
Doug Hewitt, yeah.
And so that's my opinion. It was great. It's always good to watch Hulk, and it's always good to have an excuse to come on a podcast with you, Frank, and talk about the Incredible Hulk. So,
I mean, I just wanted to shake it up and do episodes also that were not so obvious, perhaps, you know. I think it's good to sort of talk about any episode really, you know, and just not be frightened to tackle it. You know, there's something always to say about them, you know, opinions to give, so that's good. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm glad we did it, and there will be much more to come. I'm not going to say which ones in advance because I never quite know, and I don't know who I'm going to get for them until sort of last minute. So we kind of keep these secret till they're actually out, you know, which is a nicer way of doing it anyway. But we will be back. We're back weekly, more or less, unless there's reasons we can't be. So stay tuned for the next one. Thank you, Sue, for joining me. Pleasure.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
And we'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye.